Why did a millionaire walk into the wrong wedding hall and try to stop the woman he loved from marrying someone else? Jonathan Reed's actions that day were the desperate cry of 8 years of regret. But was it too late? Some moments in life arrive without warning, forcing us to choose between safety and courage, between accepting loss and fighting for what we love. Jonathan Reed thought he had made peace with his choices 8 years ago, until he walked into the wrong room and saw the woman who still owned his heart standing at an altar with another man. Before we continue with this incredible story, could you please write in the comments which city you're watching from? We share new heart-healing stories every day. Now let's get back to this amazing tale. Jonathan Reed was 31 years old and had built a technology consulting firm that served Fortune 500 companies across North America and Europe. His company, Reed Digital Solutions, had grown from a one-person startup in his apartment to a multi-million-dollar operation with offices in New York, London, and San Francisco. His innovations in data security and cloud infrastructure had earned him recognition as one of the industry's most promising young entrepreneurs. The success had come at a price that Jonathan was only beginning to understand. His penthouse office on the 32nd floor of a Manhattan skyscraper offered commanding views of the city, but the accomplishment felt hollow compared to what he had sacrificed to achieve it. The awards lining his walls, the business magazine covers featuring his photograph, and the stock options worth tens of millions of dollars couldn't fill the emptiness that had grown inside him over the past 8 years. Jonathan's daily routine was a carefully orchestrated performance of productivity and achievement. His assistant, Catherine, managed every detail of his schedule with military precision. Board meetings, client presentations, investor conferences, and networking events that kept him busy from dawn until well past midnight. He traveled first class to cities around the world, stayed in five-star hotels, and dined at restaurants where reservations were booked months in advance. But despite all his professional accomplishments, Jonathan struggled with an isolation that no amount of success could remedy. His social calendar was full of business events where people competed for his attention and investment, but genuine friendship remained elusive. He dated accomplished women who looked perfect in photographs, but these relationships felt scripted and shallow compared to the authentic connection he had once shared. The irony wasn't lost on Jonathan that he had built a company focused on connecting systems and securing data while becoming increasingly disconnected from his own emotional life. His apartment, despite its luxury and technological sophistication, felt more like a showroom than a home. He slept in a bed designed for two, ate meals at a dining table set for eight, and stood on terraces meant for entertaining while looking out at a city full of people who seemed more fulfilled than he was. Late at night, when the demands of business finally quieted and Jonathan found himself alone with his thoughts, he would inevitably think about Isabella Rodriguez, the woman he had loved completely and lost through his own choices. She represented everything he had abandoned in pursuit of success: genuine intimacy, unconditional love, and the kind of happiness that couldn't be measured in quarterly earnings reports. Isabella Rodriguez had been Jonathan's first and most profound love, a relationship that had taught him what it meant to care about someone more than himself. They met during their sophomore year at NYU, two ambitious students from different backgrounds who discovered they shared the same dreams about building meaningful careers while maintaining strong personal values. Isabella was studying social work, driven by her desire to help families in crisis and her belief that systemic change required both policy advocacy and direct service. She came from a close-knit Latino family in Queens, where her father worked as a construction foreman and her mother managed a small family restaurant. Isabella had learned early that true wealth meant having people who loved you unconditionally and communities that supported each other through difficult times. Jonathan was pursuing a double major in computer science and business, already showing the technical brilliance and entrepreneurial instincts that would eventually make him wealthy. But Isabella saw past his ambition to the caring, idealistic person underneath. She encouraged his dreams of creating technology solutions that would help businesses operate more efficiently while challenging him to remember that success should serve purposes larger than personal enrichment. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, intellectual compatibility, and a deep emotional bond that transformed both of their college experiences. They spent hours talking about their futures. Jonathan wanted to build a company that would democratize access to advanced technology, while Isabella planned to work with immigrant families who needed advocates to navigate complex social services systems. For 3 years, Jonathan and Isabella were inseparable. They studied together in the library, explored New York's diverse neighborhoods and cultural institutions, and spent quiet evenings in Isabella's small apartment, where she taught him to cook traditional Mexican dishes while he helped her understand the technology tools that could enhance her social work practice. Jonathan loved everything about Isabella: her passion for justice, her ability to find hope in difficult situations, and her talent for making everyone around her feel valued and understood. She brought warmth and purpose to his life, transforming his academic focus from mere career preparation into training for work that could make a meaningful difference in the world. Isabella made Jonathan want to be better than he was, not just professionally, but as a human being. She challenged his assumptions about success and achievement, helping him understand that the most important accomplishments were often invisible: the relationships we nurture, the trust we build, and the positive impact we have on other people's lives. During their senior year, Jonathan and Isabella began planning their post-graduation life together. They would both stay in New York, find entry-level positions in their respective fields, and build careers that complemented each other's values and aspirations. Jonathan had even begun shopping for an engagement ring, planning to propose after graduation when their future seemed more secure. But opportunity arrived in an unexpected form during the spring of their senior year. A Silicon Valley venture capital firm had been following Jonathan's academic work and undergraduate research projects, and they offered him a position in their portfolio company development program. The opportunity came with a substantial salary, equity participation in multiple startups, and access to resources that would accelerate his career by decades. The position required Jonathan to move to California immediately after graduation and commit to an intensive 18-month program that would consume every aspect of his life. The venture capital partners were clear that success in their program required complete focus. Participants who tried to maintain serious romantic relationships or outside commitments typically failed to meet the demanding performance standards. Isabella tried to be supportive when Jonathan shared the opportunity with her. She encouraged him to pursue his dreams and suggested they could maintain their relationship long distance until the program ended. Isabella had her own plans for after graduation. She intended to work for a nonprofit organization that provided legal advocacy for immigrant families, a position that would allow her to use her education to serve the community where she had grown up. But Jonathan could see the practical obstacles that Isabella's optimism overlooked. The venture capital program would require him to work 18-hour days, travel frequently to evaluate potential investments, and participate in social and networking activities that were essential for building the relationships that made careers in Silicon Valley. There would be no time for phone calls, no money for cross-country visits, and no emotional energy left for maintaining a long-distance relationship. More troubling was Jonathan's growing awareness that his new career path would fundamentally change his lifestyle and social environment. His colleagues would be other ambitious entrepreneurs and investors who measured success primarily in terms of financial returns and market dominance. Isabella's values and career goals, which Jonathan had once found inspiring, began to seem naive and potentially limiting in the context of his new professional opportunities. The night before Jonathan was scheduled to give the venture capital firm his final answer, he and Isabella sat in their favorite coffee shop near campus, the same place where they had spent countless hours studying and planning their future together. Isabella was excited about her post-graduation plans, describing the families she hoped to help and the policy changes she wanted to advocate for through her work. Jonathan watched Isabella's face as she talked about using her education to serve others, seeing the passion and idealism that had originally attracted him to her. He realized that accepting the venture capital position would mean choosing a path that led away from everything Isabella represented: community service, authentic relationships, and the belief that success should be measured by the positive impact we have on other people's lives, rather than the wealth we accumulate for ourselves. When Jonathan finally told Isabella he was accepting the California position, he tried to frame his decision in terms of building a foundation for their future together. He explained that a few years of intense focus on his career would provide the financial security they would need to support Isabella's nonprofit work and eventually start a family. But Isabella saw through Jonathan's rationalization to the truth underneath. She understood that he was choosing a lifestyle that would fundamentally change who he was, transforming him from the caring, idealistic person she loved into someone driven primarily by ambition and financial achievement. Her disappointment wasn't about the career opportunity itself, but about Jonathan's willingness to abandon their shared values in pursuit of material success. The conversation that ended their relationship was heartbreaking in its civility. Isabella didn't argue or make demands. Instead, she simply told Jonathan that she couldn't pretend to believe in a future he was obviously no longer committed to. She wished him success in his new life and asked him to remember the person he had been when they first fell in love. Jonathan left New York 2 weeks after graduation, taking the cross-country flight to San Francisco with a heavy heart and a sense that he was making the biggest mistake of his life. But pride and practicality prevented him from changing course. He had committed to the venture capital program, signed an employment contract, and convinced himself that sacrifice now would lead to happiness later. Over the following 8 years, Jonathan built Reed Digital Solutions into a highly successful company, while Isabella disappeared from his life completely. He occasionally searched for her name on social media or professional networking sites, but she seemed to have maintained her privacy or perhaps changed her name if she had married. The thought of Isabella's happiness with another man was both comforting and devastating. He wanted her to be fulfilled, but he couldn't escape the selfish wish that she might still think of him occasionally. Jonathan's success exceeded every prediction his mentors had made, but the personal fulfillment he had expected to accompany professional achievement never materialized. Each business milestone felt hollow compared to the authentic happiness he had experienced during his college years with Isabella. He had everything the world said he should want, but he had nothing that his heart truly needed. On this particular Tuesday afternoon in March, Jonathan was scheduled to meet with potential investors at the Meridian Hotel, one of Manhattan's most prestigious business venues. The meeting was crucial for Reed Digital Solutions' expansion plans. The investors were considering a $50 million funding round that would allow Jonathan to accelerate his company's growth into European and Asian markets. Jonathan arrived at the Meridian 30 minutes early, wanting to ensure that every detail of the presentation was perfect. The hotel's business center was a maze of conference rooms, private dining spaces, and executive suites designed to accommodate the complex needs of international commerce. Jonathan had reserved the Aspen Conference Room on the 15th floor, a sophisticated space with state-of-the-art presentation technology and panoramic views of Central Park. But as Jonathan stepped off the elevator, distracted by a last-minute phone call from his CFO about revised financial projections, he made a simple but life-changing mistake. Instead of turning left toward the Aspen Conference Room, he turned right and walked directly into the Berkshire Ballroom, where an entirely different kind of gathering was taking place. Jonathan found himself at the back of an elegant wedding ceremony, surrounded by approximately 200 guests dressed in formal attire. The ballroom had been transformed into a romantic paradise with white flowers, crystal chandeliers, and an altar decorated with roses and candles. Soft classical music filled the air, and the atmosphere was charged with the excitement and emotion that surrounded important life celebrations. Jonathan's first instinct was to leave immediately, but something made him pause and look toward the altar. The bride was standing with her back to the assembled guests, wearing an elaborate white gown that seemed to glow in the soft lighting. Her dark hair was arranged in an elegant updo, and her posture had a grace and dignity that seemed achingly familiar. When the bride turned slightly to accept her bouquet from a bridesmaid, Jonathan's world stopped. The profile he glimpsed was unmistakable: the delicate features, the gentle curve of her neck, the way she held her shoulders when she was trying to maintain composure in an emotional moment. After 8 years of separation, he was looking at Isabella Rodriguez, the woman he had never stopped loving. Jonathan stood frozen at the back of the ballroom, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Isabella was here, in this room, at this moment, but she was marrying someone else. The groom was a tall, distinguished-looking man in his 30s who watched Isabella with obvious adoration. The wedding party consisted of people Jonathan didn't recognize, representing a life Isabella had built during the 8 years since their separation. As the ceremony continued, Jonathan found himself unable to leave despite knowing he was intruding on the most important day of Isabella's life. He watched as she exchanged vows with a man who clearly loved her, promising to honor and cherish her in ways that Jonathan had been too immature and self-centered to provide when he had the chance. The officiant spoke about love that overcomes obstacles, commitment that deepens over time, and the courage required to build a life with another person. Every word felt like a judgment on Jonathan's choices 8 years ago, when he had chosen career advancement over the woman who had offered him genuine partnership and unconditional love. During the ring exchange, Jonathan caught a glimpse of Isabella's face as she looked at her new husband. Her expression radiated joy and peace, suggesting that she had found the happiness and security that Jonathan had been unable to provide. She looked older, more mature, but still possessed the same gentle strength and radiant beauty that had captivated him during their college years. Jonathan realized that Isabella's life had continued and flourished during the 8 years since their breakup. She had built relationships, pursued her career goals, and found someone who appreciated her in ways that Jonathan had taken for granted. The wedding represented not just a celebration of her new marriage, but a testament to her resilience and ability to create meaningful connections, even after experiencing disappointment. As the ceremony reached its climax, the officiant asked the traditional question, "If anyone has reason why these two should not be married, speak now or forever hold your peace." The ballroom fell silent, and Jonathan felt his heart pounding so loudly he was certain other guests could hear it. For one impossible moment, Jonathan considered speaking. He imagined standing up, declaring his love for Isabella, and asking her to give him another chance to prove that he had learned from his mistakes. He pictured himself explaining how 8 years of success had taught him that professional achievement meant nothing without someone to share it with, and that every accomplishment felt hollow compared to the authentic happiness he had experienced during their college years. But as Jonathan looked at Isabella's face, radiant with joy as she prepared to kiss her new husband, he realized that speaking would be the ultimate act of selfishness. Isabella had moved on, found love with someone who had been there for her when it mattered, and deserved to enjoy her wedding day without interference from a past that she had clearly resolved. Jonathan made the most difficult decision of his life. He chose to remain silent, allowing Isabella to marry the man who had earned her love through consistency, presence, and commitment. As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and Isabella kissed her new husband amid applause and cheers from their guests, Jonathan quietly slipped out of the ballroom. In the hotel corridor, Jonathan leaned against the wall and tried to regain his composure. He had just witnessed the woman he loved marry someone else, confirming that his choice 8 years ago had indeed cost him the most important relationship of his life. But he had also seen that Isabella was happy, fulfilled, and surrounded by people who celebrated her happiness, outcomes that his own selfishness might have prevented if he had spoken. Jonathan's phone buzzed with a message from his assistant, reminding him that his investors were waiting in the Aspen conference room. He took a deep breath, straightened his tie, and walked to his scheduled meeting, where he would discuss expanding a business empire that had cost him everything that truly mattered. The presentation went perfectly. The investors were impressed by Reed Digital Solutions' growth projections and committed to the $50 million funding round that would make Jonathan even wealthier than he already was. But as he shook hands and accepted congratulations on his continued success, Jonathan felt emptier than he had ever felt in his life. That evening, Jonathan stood on the terrace of his penthouse apartment, looking out at the city lights and thinking about the road not taken. He had chosen ambition over love, financial security over emotional connection, and professional achievement over personal fulfillment. The consequences of that choice had played out exactly as Isabella had predicted 8 years ago. He had gained the whole world but lost his soul. But Jonathan had also learned something important during those painful minutes in the wedding ballroom. True love sometimes means letting go, accepting that our choices have consequences, and finding the courage to hope that the people we care about can find happiness even if we can't be part of it. As he stood there in the darkness, Jonathan made a quiet promise to himself and to the memory of what he and Isabella had shared. He would learn from his mistakes, become the kind of person who deserved authentic love, and perhaps someday find the courage to open his heart again to possibilities he had been too afraid to pursue. Sometimes the greatest act of love is learning when to let go. Can a heart find peace in knowing that true love means wanting someone's happiness even when it doesn't include you? Tomorrow, we'll share another story that proves love's power to teach us who we're meant to become. Let us know in the comments what you think Jonathan should do next. The end of one love story can sometimes be the beginning of wisdom that leads to another.